How urgent is the security situation now that faces Germany and Europe generally?
Well, I joined the military in 1984, and since then I think I've never experienced a situation which is that dangerous, that urgent, like it is today. So what we are seeing, what we are facing is a threat from Russia, and we can clearly see that Russia is building up their military to a strength which is nearly doubling in size from what they had before the war against Ukraine. What we see is that they're building up new structures on the Russian side, and all those structures directing west. So for me, it's clear that there's a clear threat, and we have to have a perception that we all see this threat.
And do you have intelligence evidence that Russia is planning to attack NATO somewhere? And if so, in what time frame?
Well, we are talking to our analysts, but not only in Germany, but also on an international, in cooperation with our international partners. And what we see is the culmination point in there. And this culmination point, we would say it's in 2029. Is this the time where Russia is doing an attack? I can't tell, I can't predict, but in 2029 there's a possibility for Russia to conduct a major war against a NATO country. And I, as a military, have to say, okay, we have to be prepared for this. We have to do a worst case scenario. We have to think in worst case scenario, and this is one of my worst cases.
And how dependent are the European allies on support from the United States? And is that support dependable?
Well, I think it's not only the current administration, the current government who have said that Europe has to get more and more into a responsibility of taking over their own security. I think it was, I heard it the first time in 2011 or 2012. So what we have to do now is, in Europe, in Germany, and we are doing this, we have to take over, we have to understand that we have to take over more responsibility, and we have to do so. And here's a little bit the European dilemma. We have understood it, but building up those capabilities which are urgently needed, building up those capabilities takes a little bit of time. And there we are talking about, well, probably 3, 4, 5 years, definitely. And bringing this together, I think I would call it this dilemma, because you can't solve it right away.
So spell them out for me. What are the capabilities that currently only the United States has that the European powers need to acquire in the next 3 to 4 years?
Well, we in Germany, we set a clear prioritized list. What we need is drones, what we need is deep precision strike, and also space capabilities have to come into this. So these are the most urgent needs in here. But like I said, we have put it on a prioritized list, and we are working this, and we are good on our way to do so.
Are you ready to be the first general to lead a German army to war in Europe for the first time since 1945?
Well, bear with me, I think the connotation of leading to war is wrong in here. So what I'm ready to, and what I'm doing at the moment is to prepare Germany of being able to defend ourselves and building up those defense capabilities. This is deterrence for us, and this will deter the threat we are facing from the Russian side.
Just to be clear, who is the enemy that you face?
For me, it's much more about the threat. And the threat is very clear. The threat is coming from Russia. We have to see this, we have to face this, and we have to put our efforts against this threat. When you're talking about enemies, this is for me a front line where you're standing in front of each other, looking others in the face. This is about enemy. We are definitely not there.
You seem like a man in a hurry. Do you think the political leadership of Germany and of the other European allies are themselves sufficiently equal to the urgency? Are they moving quickly enough for you?
Well, what I've seen in my term as a chief of defense in Germany, I've seen a change also in the public in Germany, also in society, and also with the political leadership. This urgency is really there. So the perception of 2029 is understood, that we have to be kriegstüchtig, like we will call it in Germany, so able and ready to wage a war, that we have to be ready by 2029. This has changed the attitude. So therefore I would say a clear yes, the urgency is understood, and we are living up to this.
So when you joined the army 42 years ago in 1984, there were still tens of thousands of Allied troops taking care of Germany's defense for it. And there was a deeply ingrained suspicion of militarism in Germany because of the country's very dark past. Do you think finally in these last few years Germany has moved out of that?
Well, we understood or we understand that there is a lot of responsibility we have to take, but this responsibility is also to our past, to our history. So we can't step out of our history, definitely not. And at the same time we have to understand that we have to take over more responsibility in and for Europe, but always together with our European allies. So this understanding is clearly there and has shifted society over the last years.
Let me ask you about events over the last few weeks. Iran, Israel, the United States. We see an alignment between Russia and Iran. Two wars eliding. Do you think what's happening there makes the security situation in Germany and in Europe even more precarious?
I'm absolutely sure that we can't think in boxes anymore. So it's not the European theater and the near Middle East and then probably China or the Indo-Pacific area. We have to connect those dots. All those theaters are intertwined, are interlinked. And what happens in one theater has impact on the other theater as well. This understanding has shaped I think very much also our military strategy, which is coming out in the next couple of weeks.
Chancellor Merz said that it's clear now that the European allies need to acquire within NATO operational autonomy of the United States, so that should the need arise, Europe would be able to act militarily without the United States. Is operational autonomy achievable?
Well, it's for me. It's much more that we have to see the threat in Europe, and that we have to counter this threat. So there has to be a clear perception on this. In strengthening Europe and also the defense industry in Europe, in building up forces, this comes closer together, meeting this threat over there, and therefore there's also a strengthening or a clear way of strengthening the European pillar in NATO. So bringing this together, I think once again Europe has understood what we have to do, and we are doing so.
Can you give us an overview of what's happening, what's changing in the German and the broader European defence industry? Is it expanding? Is it growing? Is it meeting the need?
It's definitely meeting the needs. It's on its way, and with first the extra budget which the Parliament, the government provided in Germany after the beginning of the war in Ukraine, with this 100 billion euro of extra budget. This was a starting point for this, but it was also clear for the defense industry that this extra budget will end in 2027. And then there was the next step in 2025, when the government decided and the parliament decided to have this no ceiling budget for all security-related and defense-related issues. So changing the constitution in that way and build up trust for the forces, that we can plan on what we really need to have, and also trust for the industry that they can set up new production lines, because it's clear that what they are producing is needed in the forces. So this has changed I would say, the relationship. This has changed the approach of the defense industry in Germany as well.
It's sometimes hard for people outside Germany to understand how big a psychological step that was for the Germans, because Germans are uniquely neurotic about debt and borrowing and committed to the idea of fiscal discipline. Psychologically, how big a leap was it for the country to relax those borrowing restrictions?
Well, your question is a perfect description of how Germans are looking at this and how Germans are feeling on this. But it was also clear that this, you called it, or we can call it a wake-up call, which came there, that we were not able and also not willing to put once again to push the snooze button on this for this wake-up call. So this understanding has really led to this perception has led to a different understanding. A huge step for Germany, is a huge step for the German population, definitely.
Not everybody in Germany is on side. Some people in Germany say building up an army will simply lead to war, because arms races often do. What's your answer to that?
Well, it's for me, it's taking them into a discussion and putting the rationale of 2029 and explain to them that there is not only a threat perception, but that there's a real threat out there. And without security, everything else is nothing. Security, out of my perspective, out of my belief, has to come first. Out of this security, we will create deterrence, and this is what is needed.
Do you think Germany will emerge from this as the preeminent military power in Europe, certainly in terms of conventional defense?
Well, I think Europe will grow in itself on this, and if Germany can be one part of it and can provide what is needed for others to lean on, but also being in concert with all the others, it's good for Europe and it's good for the future in Europe.
What about recruitment? Are there any doubts about whether enough young people will be prepared to join the armed forces in order for you to raise the level of your military preparedness?
Well, the way going into conscription is one answer to what we need to have. We have to build up the forces. We have to build up, especially also our reserve forces, and this is the reason why we have had the discussion about conscription. Well, a voluntary conscription in Germany, because this part of voluntarity of being voluntary is the other part of it. We need, at the same time, we have to keep our forces ready, because readiness is the currency of NATO at the moment. So getting a big amount of young people into the forces and being able to train them means that you have to take forces which are at the moment preparing for their fight at NATO Eastern Flank into the training areas, and this will decrease readiness. So therefore it's a fine balance we have to find, and I think we did it with the system.
Are you ready to argue with your political leaders for the reintroduction of compulsory conscription if recruitment doesn't reach the levels you want?
Well, at the moment, and we should take it step by step. At the moment, I think it's this fine balance, which I said, or which I put at the table about readiness and also recruitment. If it is not enough in the future, then there is a built-in mechanism into this law that we automatically have to discuss this issue.
Can you build a properly integrated single European defence force that can act as one without falling apart because individual nations asserting sovereignty cannot agree?
Well, what I'm seeing is that the European nations, and when I look into NATO, the 31 European nations plus Canada and the US are coming much closer together because of this threat we are facing from Russia. This has brought us closer together, has brought us shoulder by shoulder. So what I can't see that there's a difference between the attitude of those nations. What I therefore see is a unity in there. And I would perceive this unity also being the key for the future, for freedom and peace in Europe.
You are probably the most important and the most powerful soldier in Europe in our day. Do you feel the burden of that?
I think I feel the responsibility every day. This responsibility is the responsibility for the forces I'm leading here in Germany. I'm one of the soldiers of the 182,000 soldiers in Germany, and I'm feeling this responsibility of that leadership which has to be provided. I'm very glad that I'm part of this leadership team in Germany, because together we will face this and we will cope with this challenge, definitely.
General Breuer, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Thanks.